Stories and Documentary Network.
Long before the first sunrise painted Venta's earthen pyramids gold, long before San Lorenzo's plazas throbbed with ceremonial pulse, a network of cities rose from the tangled Gulf Coast swamps and forests. These were not haphazard settlements, but carefully planned centers of power. Organized spaces where rulers, priests, artisans, and farmers each played their part in a grand living tapestry. To walk the causeways of San Lorenzo or stand atop a Venta mound was to move between the earthly and the divine, to sense how every stone, every plaza, every canal was imbued with meaning. San Lorenzo, the earliest and grandest of the Olmec capitals, emerged around 1400 BCE on a raised plateau above seasonal floodwaters. Here, vast earthen mounds, some standing nearly 30 meters tall, flanked a long central plaza, its boundaries defined by parallel terraces and low stone walls. Water management was crucial. Engineers dug canals that channeled floods away from living areas, while artificial drainage ditches directed rainwater into hidden reservoirs. From the main plaza, broad ramps led to platforms where colossal basalt sculptures were erected, giant heads, thrones, and altars that asserted the divine authority of Olmec rulers. Decades later, when San Lorenzo's prominence waned, Venta rose to take its place. Built on an island within a swamp, Venta's architects created a level, stable core by building wooden pilings and importing fill. At its heart lay the Great Pyramid, a truncated cone of layered clay and gravel crowned by a flat summit plaza. Radiating from the central mound were smaller platforms, courtyards, and straight causeways aligned to the cardinal directions. One causeway, known as the King's Road, stretched over a kilometer, linking the pyramid to subsidiary plazas and ceremonial sites. Archaeologists believe that processions of priests and nobles would advance in stately lines along these raised walkways, moving between temples and offering sites with deliberate, measured steps. The spatial layout of these cities reflected a rigid social hierarchy. At the apex stood the ruler, part king, part priest, believed to embody divine power. His compound, positioned on the highest platforms, overlooked the central plaza and statues that memorialized his lineage. Below him were the priesthood, keepers of ritual, calendar, and cosmic knowledge. They occupied special quarters near temple sites, their homes furnished with altars, incense burners, and small carved figurines for daily worship. Artisans formed the next tier. Skilled sculptors, potters, and jade carvers lived in workshops arrayed along secondary plazas. There, they shaped the distinctive baby-face figurines, carved celts, and molded clay vessels that would find their way across Mesoamerica. Their expertise was prized. A single piece of fine jade or intricately incised pottery signified status and piety in other cities, elevating the artisan's prestige at home. At the base of society were the farmers and laborers. Beyond the city walls, fields of maize, beans, and squash sprawled across the floodplain. These workers lived in simple thatch-roofed houses raised on earthen platforms to avoid seasonal floods. Their daily routine followed the rhythm of the land, sowing in the rains, harvesting in the dry season, and tending canal systems year-round. Women tended gardens of chili, manioc, and cacao trees, while men fished, hunted small game, and cleared new fields. Children helped gather firewood and took part in household rituals, learning the oral traditions of myth and genealogy that bound families to the city's founding. Within the city proper, life was vibrant. Markets buzzed in open plazas where traders sold obsidian blades from the Guatemalan highlands, jade beads from the Motagua Valley, and shells from distant coasts. Colorful ceramic vessels, painted with mythic scenes and geometric motifs, lined the stalls, standing ready for feasts or funerary offerings. Exotic feathers, including iridescent quetzal plumes, were prized for headdresses and ritual costumes, marking participants as otherworldly in processions. These trade networks, overland and riverine, were vital to the Olmec economy and ideology. Rivers like the Coatzacoalcos served as highways, carrying dugout canoes laden with goods to neighboring communities. Overland trails, cleared through the jungle and marked by stone cairns, linked Olmec centers with emerging Zapotec and Maya towns. As prestige items moved outward, Jade masks, carved figurines, and fine obsidian, they carried Olmec motifs and religious concepts that would seed new cultural hybrids thousands of kilometers from home. Yet even as they imported exotic materials, the Olmec developed their own systems of recording time and events. Evidence of an early calendar appears in carved stone stelae at San Lorenzo, where dot and bar markings, interpreted by scholars as numeric counts, hint at a 5-day week or ritual cycle. Small ceramic discs bear incised tallies that may correspond to agricultural or ceremonial dates. While no fully developed calendar survives, these fragments point to a sophisticated sense of temporal order, one that prefigured the later Maya long count. At Tres Zapotes, the discovery of a monumental stone, now known as Stela C, brought the world closer to understanding Olmec timekeeping. Its long, serpentine glyphs combine dots, bars, and iconographic elements that resemble later Maya date formulas. Though partially eroded, the stela suggests that Olmec elites recorded anniversaries, ruler accession dates, or mythic cycles in stone, a practice that would crystallize centuries later in Maya stelae. The most tantalizing clue to Olmec writing comes from the Cascajal Block, a serpentine slab covered in 62 unique symbols. Found near San Lorenzo, the block dates to around 900 BCE and may represent the earliest script in the Americas. The symbols, some pictographic, some abstract, are arranged in rows, with occasional ligatures and repeated elements suggesting grammar and syntax. While the meanings remain undeciphered, the block reveals a civilization experimenting with the written word, poised on the threshold of recording history in letters as well as myths and images. Taken together, the cities of San Lorenzo, Venta, and Tres Zapotes reveal a people who mastered space and society. Urban planners harnessed floodwaters and aligned avenues to cosmic axes. Rulers and priests maintained order through ritual and monument. Artisans and farmers sustained the economy and enriched the culture. Traders wove an inter-regional tapestry of goods and ideas. Scribes and tallymakers began to script time itself. In their harmony of art, science, and spirituality, these Olmec centers set the template for every Mesoamerican civilization that followed. The first of these giants came to light in 1862, when local farmers clearing land near San Lorenzo accidentally unearthed a massive head, roughly the size of a small car. Over the next decades, 6 such heads would be identified at San Lorenzo alone, each one unique, each one weighing between 6 and 40 metric tons. At Venta, 4 more have been documented, one of which stands over 3 meters tall and weighs an estimated 20 tons. Tres Zapotes later yielded 2 more, though more fragmentary. In total, at least 17 colossal heads have been recorded, their stone surfaces eroded, but their presence eternally commanding. Scholars have long debated whom these heads represent. One prevailing theory is that they are portrait busts of Olmec rulers, monumentalizing individual leaders in a manner not unlike the later Roman emperors or Maya kings. The variation in facial features, broad cheeks, fleshy lips, distinct noses, suggests that each head was modeled on a different person rather than conforming to a single divine prototype. The sense of individuality is striking. One head's eyes are downcast in contemplative repose. Another's gaze fixes outward, projecting authority and vigilance across the plaza. A competing hypothesis ties the heads to the Mesoamerican ballgame. Protective helmets, thick rounded headgear with side-flaring cheek guards, are a recurring motif on the sculptures. Some researchers argue that the heads depict champion ballplayers, heroes who, through ritual play, embodied cosmic struggle and thus merited immortalization. Ballplayers held a special status in many Mesoamerican societies. Their contests symbolize the battle between day and night, life and death. If the Olmec heads do portray these athletes, it underscores the deep intertwining of sport, religion, and rulership in their culture. Regardless of identity, the sheer scale and craftsmanship of the heads required extraordinary logistical feats. All known sculptures were carved from basalt boulders quarried from the Sierra de los Tuxtlas, a volcanic highland some 60 to 100 kilometers inland. Transporting these stones through dense rainforest, across rivers, and over marshy plains presented daunting challenges. Experimental archaeologists propose that the Olmec used a combination of raft barges on river networks and log rollers overland, lubricating routes with water, mud, or vegetal oils. Teams of hundreds of workers would have coordinated to haul each massive stone, underscoring the existence of a highly organized labor force under strong political direction. Once in place, the heads were carved with stone and shell tools. Harder stones like jadeite or greenstone for pecking, and sand as an abrasive for smoothing. The sculptors began by roughing out the general shape, then refined facial features in successive passes. Despite the hardness of basalt, the treatment of details, such as the curvature of lips or the formation of eyelids, is remarkably precise, suggesting not only technical mastery, but also a clear artistic vision. Symbolism is embedded in every aspect of these works. The helmets may reference ballgame gear, but they also evoke regalia of rulership and divine protection. The broad faces and folded arms, seen on some throne-like monuments, connect the human and the supernatural, suggesting that these figures could mediate between worlds. Intriguing traces of pigment found in cracks hint that the heads may once have been painted in vivid reds, blacks, and whites, further emphasizing their ritual significance. Artistically, the colossal heads occupy a striking middle ground between realism and abstraction. Unlike the strictly geometric patterns of earlier cultures, the Olmec sculptures convey lifelike volume, weight, and expression. Yet they stop short of full naturalism. Certain features, such as the pronounced downturned mouth or the exaggerated brow ridge, adhere to a stylized Olmec aesthetic, a shared visual vocabulary that extends across the region. This balance allows each head to be both an individual portrait and a member of a coherent cultural tradition. Beyond the heads, the Olmec carved other monumental sculptures that reveal more facets of their mythology and authority. Altars, rectangular stones with carved fronts, often served as thrones for rulers or pedestals for ritual offerings. One famous altar at Venta depicts a figure emerging from a cave-like portal, his limbs contorted in dynamic tension. These portal monuments symbolize entrances to the underworld, linking the ruler to the cosmic journey of birth, death, and rebirth. Thrones, too, feature prominently. The so-called monkey altar at Venta portrays a seated figure, perhaps a shaman or ruler, his arms folded in a gesture of control over cosmic forces. Nearby were jaguar figures crouched in stone, their human bodies merging with feline features. These hybrids underscore the theme of transformation. Rulers or shamans taking on jaguar power to bridge earthly and divine realms. Carved with sharp claws, pronounced ears, and the familiar cleft forehead, these statues reinforce the jaguar's role as a symbol of fertility, authority, and the underworld. Even smaller sculptures, stelae, figurines, and ceramic plaques, echo the same language of power. A fragmented stela at Tres Zapotes bears the image of a ruler kneeling in reverence, while a cache of stone figurines at San Lorenzo shows priests in elaborate headdresses. These objects, though modest in scale compared to the heads, were essential to ritual practice, marking important dates, ceremonies, and mythic narratives. Taken together, the colossal heads and their companion sculptures formed a network of monuments of power. Public statements that fused artistry, religion, and politics. Positioned at the heart of plazas and atop pyramidal mounds, they were daily reminders of the ruler's divine sanction and the community's place in a cosmological drama. Processions winding around these stones enacted ancient myths, with priests, nobles, and commoners participating in ceremonies that reaffirmed social order and celestial harmony. Today, more than 2 millennia later, the Olmec colossal heads continue to fascinate. Their silent gazes challenge us to imagine the societies that raised them, the leaders who commissioned them, the artisans who carved them, the laborers who hauled them, and the priests who consecrated them. In each weathered contour, we glimpse a civilization that wielded art as both political instrument and spiritual conduit. And in their endurance, standing firm against jungle growth, human conflict, and the passage of time, we recognize the lasting power of Olmec vision, a kingdom of stone carved by human hands, destined to speak across the ages. For centuries, the great Olmec Civilization lay hidden beneath the dense jungles of Mexico's Gulf Coast. Its colossal stone heads buried by time, its cities swallowed by vegetation. Their existence was a whispered secret, known only to local farmers and indigenous communities, until the dawn of modern archaeology began to peel back the layers of mystery. The first clues emerged in the 19th century, when Mexican farmers stumbled upon massive stone sculptures while clearing land for agriculture. These enigmatic artifacts sparked curiosity but little understanding. Early scholars misattributed the colossal heads to more recent indigenous peoples, or even foreign influences. It was only with systematic exploration in the 20th century that the true magnitude of the Olmec was recognized. Enter Matthew Stirling, a pioneering American archaeologist whose passion and persistence reshaped Mesoamerican studies. Beginning in the 1930s, Stirling led expeditions deep into the jungles of Veracruz and Tabasco, uncovering San Lorenzo, a sprawling urban center and one of the earliest Olmec capitals. His excavations revealed monumental architecture, intricate jade artifacts, and a rich cultural tapestry dating back more than 3 millennia. Following San Lorenzo, attention shifted to La Venta, the ceremonial heart of Olmec culture after San Lorenzo's decline. Excavations revealed towering earthen pyramids, ritual plazas, and a host of sculptures that deepened understanding of Olmec religion and social organization. Meanwhile, Tres Zapotes, the last major Olmec site, yielded critical insights into the civilization's late phase, including early examples of Olmec writing and the famed colossal heads. Together, these 3 sites form the triad of Olmec archaeological research, each shedding light on different epochs, aspects of governance, religious practice, and artistry. In recent decades, technological advances have revolutionized the study of the Olmec. LiDAR, light detection and ranging technology allows archaeologists to scan beneath dense jungle canopies, revealing hidden structures and ancient roadways without disturbing the fragile environment. This airborne laser mapping has uncovered previously unknown settlements and landscape modifications, helping reconstruct the Olmec world with unprecedented clarity. Dating methods such as radiocarbon analysis have refined timelines and challenged earlier assumptions. Carbon dating of charcoal from construction layers and burial sites helps place Olmec activities within precise chronological frameworks, confirming their status as Mesoamerica's earliest complex society. 3D scanning and digital reconstruction techniques have enabled researchers to create detailed models of Olmec artifacts and monuments. These digital replicas facilitate comparative studies and preservation efforts, while allowing the public to explore ancient sites virtually, bridging gaps between past and present. Despite these breakthroughs, Olmec archaeology faces significant challenges. The region's dense jungles and swampy terrain make excavations difficult and resource-intensive. Heavy rains and shifting river courses threaten to erode delicate sites. Moreover, looting and illegal artifact trade remain persistent problems, damaging invaluable contexts and robbing history of its meaning. Political and economic factors also limit sustained research efforts. The Olmec heartland lies within areas sometimes marked by limited infrastructure and competing priorities, making long-term projects difficult to maintain. By the mid-20th century, the Olmec had been firmly enshrined in archaeological textbooks as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, credited with seeding religious practices, iconography, and political structures that later civilizations would refine. Yet as research has deepened, scholars have grown uneasy with simplistic family tree metaphors. Were the Olmec truly parents to all, or merely one among a chorus of formative voices? Some argue that the Olmec laid the very foundations of Mesoamerican civilization. Their art language, jaguar deities, ball courts, cosmic duality, reappears almost everywhere, from the highlands of Guatemala to the central Mexican plateau. Their agricultural innovations, calendrical ideas, and ritual regimes seem to predate comparable practices in Zapotec and Maya regions. For these researchers, the mother culture label remains apt. The Olmec innovated first, and others borrowed, adapted, and expanded. But in the 1980s and 90s, a new generation of Mesoamericanists pushed back. They pointed to evidence of complex societies developing contemporaneously in Oaxaca and the Chiapas highlands, places where monumental architecture and early writing systems also emerge around 1000 to 800 BCE. These scholars favor a sister cultures model, multiple regional centers growing in parallel, sharing ideas through trade and intermarriage, but each contributing original innovations to the broader tapestry. The debate flares most passionately over theories of external influence, particularly the Afro-Atlantic hypothesis. In the early 20th century, some fringe authors speculated that the Olmec stone heads, with their broad noses and full lips, betrayed an African origin. They argued that transatlantic voyages reached the Gulf Coast centuries before Columbus. Today, these ideas have been thoroughly discredited. Genetic studies of ancient remains show clear continuity with earlier American populations, and no archaeological evidence supports pre-Columbian contact with Africa. Mainstream scholars now agree that superficial resemblances in facial features are cultural or artistic choices, not evidence of migration across oceans. If not imported wholesale, then how did ideas propagate? Scholars have long debated cultural diffusion versus independent invention. Trade networks certainly linked the Olmec heartland with distant regions. Jade from the Motagua Valley, obsidian from the Guatemalan highlands, shells from the Pacific and Caribbean coasts. Such exchanges carried technologies and iconography far and wide. Yet the independent development camp notes that societies with similar environmental challenges often invent analogous solutions: pyramid-tiered monuments, complex irrigation, or ball courts to settle social tensions. They argue that human creativity, responding to shared needs, can produce parallel innovations without direct borrowing. Adding to the puzzle is the question of Olmec writing and language. If the Cascajal Block does represent true writing, what language does it record? Unfortunately, no bilingual inscriptions or deciphered texts have surfaced. Some linguists have attempted to link Olmec speech to later Mixozoquean languages, based on the geography of Mixozoquean-speaking groups and the probable distribution of the Olmec. Yet without more extensive inscriptions, such connections remain speculative. The lack of clear glyphic texts means the Olmec speak to us only in broken fragments through scattered symbols and place name motifs. The most exciting frontier in Olmec studies lies in new cosmological theories. Recent iconographic analyses suggest the Olmec conceived of time and space in ways more nuanced than simple dualities. Some researchers identify a tripartite cosmos: earth, sky, and a subterranean watery realm, each governed by distinct deities and colors. They propose that Olmec ceremonies reenacted cosmic cycles of death and rebirth, mirrored in seasonal floods and agricultural sowing. Others argue for an animistic worldview in which every stone, tree, and river possessed a spirit, and power rested not in centralized rulers alone, but in community rituals that bound humans and nature together. Cutting-edge imaging techniques have revealed previously unseen details on sculptures and altars. Tiny glyphic scratches, pigment residues, or alignments that once escaped notice. When paired with environmental reconstructions, these discoveries hint at Olmec practices of skywatching and seasonal ceremony far more elaborate than once believed. The Olmec enigma persists, a civilization both central and elusive, foundational yet fluid, powerful yet ephemeral. Were they the architects of all later Mesoamerican greatness, or a brilliant regional phenomenon among many? Did they share their myths and methods by trade networks, or did parallel evolution mirror similar human experiences? And what do their silent stones tell us about the souls and tongues lost to time? When the last Olmec city fell silent, and the giant heads lay half-buried in undergrowth, it seemed the first great civilization of Mesoamerica might vanish without a trace. Yet in every subsequent empire, among the Maya princes carving stelae in the highlands, the Zapotec priests inscribing calendars in Oaxaca, the builders raising the pyramids of Teotihuacan, even the Aztec rulers weaving myths in the Valley of Mexico, the heartbeat of the Olmec continued to echo. Take the Maya, who began erecting their own stone monuments around 300 BCE. Their cult of the jaguar deity, the ball court that served as a cosmic arena, and the concept of divine rulership were unmistakably Olmec in inspiration. Maya kings claimed descent from powerful animal gods, just as Olmec elites once adopted jaguar attributes in ritual dress and sculpture. Maya architects oriented their temples to solstices and equinoxes, a practice pioneered on the clay-plastered mounds of Venta. Even the Mayas' reverence for jade, fashioning it into masks, jewelry, and offerings, mirrors the Olmec mastery of that vibrant green stone. Far to the west, in the rugged valleys of Oaxaca, the Zapotec emerged around 500 BCE. Their monumental ceremonial center at Monte Alban features an early writing system and stepped plazas that recall Olmec prototypes. Zapotec priests carved ghost-faced jaguar icons and flame eyebrow motifs in their tombs, echoing Olmec iconography. Trade routes carrying obsidian, cacao, and precious shells would have crossed Olmec territories, cementing a flow of ideas as well as goods. In Zapotec culture, too, the seed sown by the Olmecs sprouted into a unique bloom of art and language. As centuries passed and new powers arose, the city of Teotihuacan became the preeminent center from roughly 100 CE to 650 CE. Its grand avenue of the dead, flanked by towering pyramids of the sun and moon, continued the Olmec tradition of monumental civic ceremonial architecture. Teotihuacanos worshipped feathered serpents, Quetzalcoatl, in forms reminiscent of the Olmec's earliest snake god images. They painted feline serpent hybrids on palace walls and created small jade masks that bear the serene expressions first molded by Olmec artisans. Even the grid plan of Teotihuacan, with its emphasis on cardinal directions, finds an antecedent in the precise alignments of San Lorenzo and Venta. Finally, in the Tenochtitlan of the Aztecs, the Olmec legacy pulsed beneath every stone. Aztec cosmology and ritual borrowed heavily from Olmec models of blood sacrifice, rain-making ceremonies, and the cosmic duality of life and death. The Aztec myth of the five suns, the cyclical creation and destruction of worlds, echoes the Olmec understanding of time as a set of recurring ages. Their ballgame courts, teeming marketplaces, and jade workshops all traced a line back to that pioneer culture in the humid Gulf Coast lowlands. Through each of these societies, the Olmec aesthetic survived, not simply in copy, but in a living process of adaptation. The snarling where jaguar heads gave way to stylized feline deities. The jade celts inspired ritual blades and masks. The mountain-shaped mounds of Venta evolved into stepped pyramids across the region. Even when new gods rose to prominence, the undercurrents of Olmec myth, of transformation, sacred duality, and communication with the spirit world, remained at the core of Mesoamerican religious life. Yet their influence extends beyond iconography. The very idea that a civilization could align its cities with celestial bodies, construct vast earthen works, and integrate art with ritual and power owes much to the Olmec precedent. They taught later cultures that art was more than beauty. It was language. That architecture was more than shelter. It was cosmology. That religion was more than worship. It was the binding force of society. In the broader narrative of human civilization, the Olmecs stand as pioneers. They remind us that complex societies can emerge in unexpected places, swamps and jungles where ingenuity and adaptation turn vulnerability into strength. They show that art and science, faith and politics can intertwine to create a world that endures in memory and myth. Today, as drones map buried plazas and digital reconstructions resurrect sunken cities, the Olmec live again in our screens and stories. Their stone giants gaze out over virtual jungles. Their jade treasures shine anew in museum galleries. Their enigmatic symbols spark fresh debate among scholars and dreamers alike. In our age of bytes and bandwidth, these first architects of Mesoamerica teach us that human creativity transcends medium. From stoneheads to digital memory, the legacy of the Olmec endures. The jaguar people may have vanished from the earth, but they did not vanish from history. They planted seeds in ideas, in art, in architecture, that grew into the grand civilizations of the Americas. And as long as we continue to seek, to question, and to remember, the kingdom of Olmec will live on, whispering its ancient truths to every new generation.